own and operate, and some which we franchise in. So one of the benefits we have as SSP, given that we've got a wide geographical presence, we understand consumer habits, we understand cultural values, habits, etc. And we can take that learning into various countries when we start to look at franchising. So we've started to franchise 3 particular brands initially: Millie's Cookies, Ritazza, and Upper Crust. So these are the 3 brands that we've partnered with World Iconic Brands, which is part of Franchise India. But we also have some fine dining restaurants as well. There's a brand called Le Trembleur, which is in Paris, and we've also developed a brand called Le Petit Trembleur, both of which are opening up in Doha as we speak. Here's some images from very basic cookie brands, coffee shops, etc., to some very fine dining restaurants. So we have a whole plethora of different concepts in our portfolio. So a little bit more about Millie's. So Millie's is a very iconic British cookie brand. We have today 60 equity stores, all in the UK, and a couple in France and Germany. We started to franchise out about 3-4 years ago. Today we've got 28 franchise stores. Now the majority of these are in the UK. We've got about 20 stores in the UK. We've then started to really, if you look at the geography, we went into the Middle East and in Qatar. So we've got about 5 stores in the Middle East today. We haven't marketed this in a hard way. These are people who've really had interest in the brand, seen it in the UK when they're traveling or have been studying. And then about 18 months ago, we started discussions with Franchise India and World Iconic Brands. And they've now taken 3 of our brands, Upper Crust, Ritazza, and Millie's Cookies. So a little bit more about Millie's Cookies. Has anybody here seen the brand at all when they've been traveling? Yeah, a few of you have. One of the beauties about Millie's Cookies is its versatility. So from those pictures you can see from the right-hand side, it comes as a basic cart to a kiosk and then to a sit-down restaurant type environment as well. So it's very flexible, and I know space is very expensive in most of the malls in India and also around the world. So we are very flexible in trying to find the right location and fit the right type of concept in those locations. Now, the hero of the Millie's Cookies brand, no surprise, is the cookie itself. From that, we can create a cookie cupcake, giant celebration cookies, so these are the sort of 12-inch cookies as well, through to cookie pops, cookie slices, etc. And I'll come on to the product in a little bit more detail later on as well. There's obviously a drinks range as well, but there's also a very strong gifting range. So on the right-hand side there, you can see the various tins that the cookies can be presented in. Now, what are the keys to success with this brand? So the brand is something like 20 years old, so it's a very proven P&L model. We generate 75 to 80% margin. The brand has huge appeal. We haven't really had to sell this brand hard across the world. Most of the interest has come directly to us from people who've seen the brand on their travels. It really does resonate with people who've got a passion for sweet treats. So a lot of our brand partners typically have other brands as well. So in the UK, for example, a number of our franchisees also work with Subway or Pizza Hut, etc., and this is just added to their portfolio. But everybody recognizes the brand. It's very, very simple to operate. So on the slide there, you can see the actual cookie comes as a frozen cookie puck and is placed on a baking tray, and 15 minutes later, you've got a perfect cookie. Now, the same puck you can make into the cupcakes as well, to the giant cookies, to the cookie pops, etc. So operationally, this is a very simple concept. We have a week's training for the concept, and if you already operate a brand like Subway or Pizza Hut, etc., typically after 2 days, the people say, we understand the brand, when can we start rolling it out? So very, very simple to operate. And we talked about the store flexibility as well. You can operate it from 20 square meters all the way to 100 square meters. Now, what are sort of what I call the ingredients to success? I'm going to go through sort of 7 key steps here. The first is the partnership model. I'm going to share with you sort of the 4 different models. There isn't one model that fits all with these brands. In the UK, given we've got presence, we've got equity stores, we've got a lot of resource, a very established supply chain, we're happy to work with small franchise owners. So typically, our business in the UK has got 5 to 6 stores spread around the whole country. When we then started to look further afield, we then had to develop the model. So in Qatar today, we have one country franchise partner. If you know Qatar, really, most of the business happens around Doha. So we have one country franchise owner there. They also have a number of other brands which they operate. We then looked at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is a huge, huge country. What we didn't want to do there was just go with one partner. So we've actually split Saudi Arabia into two separate sectors, so Riyadh and Jeddah. And we've actually got 2 partners who are rolling out the brand there. In both Qatar and Saudi Arabia, the product actually comes from the UK. Now, India, we developed a completely different model for various factors, which I'll share with you. So in India, we actually have a master franchise partner, WIB, as I mentioned earlier. Now, the reason being, India being a huge country in its own right, but also very, very different regional differences. And the biggest factor for us really was the supply chain. Trying to get product from the UK into India was going to be quite tough, not only logistically, but also the import duties for wheat-based products are quite onerous. It was something like 70-80% duties. Then you got the cost of logistics, etc. So we decided to find a supplier in India itself. So we now partner with Baker Circle, who produce our cookies for us. One of the key elements of working with a master franchise partner is that you really have to make sure they've got an experienced management team. We've seen a number of cases where we've partnered with people, and it's kind of interesting, but they haven't put the resource and the skill set. So we insist on a very, very experienced management team, and I'll share that in a little bit more detail shortly. The other is scalability. The last thing you want to do is bring a brand into a country and stop after 3 or 4 stores. So we had to be convinced that WIB had a very strong pipeline, had very good connections, and we're really seeing a lot of good evidence around that. Clearly, funding is important. The other key area is adapting the brand for the local market, and I'll share a little bit more detail on that in a few minutes as well. Product and supply chain I talked about. It was really, really important for us to make sure that the product was going to be as perfect as we could get it compared to the UK model. We spent over a year perfecting the recipe. It was pretty tough. At the end, actually, we haven't got one partner. We've got one partner that does the cookie mix, and another partner that actually puts the mix into a frozen puck. So we've got 2 partners who have developed the solution for us. And then we've got a separate logistics partner as well. Support and training. The team from WIB actually spent 2 weeks in the UK in our stores, getting training, really understanding the brand. And then we've got a champion who's a trainer who will start training as each store opens in India. So how have we adapted the brand within India? First of all, the bestseller is always going to be the double chocolate cookie. So a number of the bestsellers are in India. But we've also added a few new lines. So the example there you see is the dark chocolate and coconut. And the other key thing that we were told was about eggless cookies as well. So within the European market, we don't have eggless cookies. But certainly for the Indian market, we've developed that. Also the cookie size for the Indian market, we had to increase. Typically it's about 40 grams. For the Indian market, we've increased it to 50 grams. Also the range, we've put a much wider cake range for India. The drinks range are much wider, as is the ice cream sundaes. In terms of the store format, probably 99% of our stores in Europe are kiosks. But again, for the Indian market, we've adapted it to add seating wherever we can as well. And also from my own learning, selling drinks, cold drinks, is not that popular apparently in India. So the drinks chiller, which is a standard format, it's much smaller within India. I think the other eye-opening thing for us with the brand was the number of festivals that India has. I think we have about 60 or 70 different festivals. And already, since opening our first store in Saket, I think we've had about 4 or 5 festivals and 4 or 5 campaigns. So there's a huge marketing presence behind the brand and a lot of campaigns being developed as we speak. And you can just see some examples there. Pretty hard to see, I guess, from where you're sitting, but we had a Friendship Day, we've had Eid, we've had Raksha Bandhan as well. So for all those, we've created a number of marketing campaigns, and I guess Diwali is going to be the next big one, which is getting very exciting for us. Now, in terms of our plans for India, so we've partnered with World Iconic Brands. They've appointed a head of the brand, a guy called Tony White, who's got a lot of experience in India. He's our CEO for the brand, and there's a whole team behind that, from operations to business development to training. So this is not just a part-time job for somebody. There's actually a full infrastructure, and that was really crucial for us from the very beginning to make sure that there was a proper management team behind this. In terms of the model for India, given the sheer size of the country, we adopted an area developer model. So the ambition is to have eight area developers for the country. The team have really successfully signed up 4 area developers. 3 are in the pipeline, and I understand only Kerala is now left. So if anybody is interested in taking Kerala, please see us afterwards. So the first store opened in Select City Walk last month. Specific Mall opened, I believe, this weekend. So I'm getting excited to see that later on today. We've got a further 2 opening in Chennai and a 3 opening in Kolkata, and hopefully Mumbai soon as well. And I'll put Bathinda there because that's the place where my father was born. So I'm hoping that one day we'll have one in Bathinda as well. Now, the key watch-outs. Now, we can all sort of start running when it comes to franchising a brand and miss some of the obvious. These are just 2 or 3 of the key things I think we need to be very conscious of when you are franchising a brand. The first thing is the locations. Again, we've had experiences where we've opened stores in absolutely the wrong location, hungry for growth, and kind of any location will do. We've taken a lot of learning from that, so we're now very sensitive to every location. And when we launch in a country, we insist that they have to be in the top malls before they start looking at secondary locations. And the other thing is you've got to keep signing off every design. There's a lot of learning, particularly in the initial stages, where a franchisee takes a brand and doesn't set it up operationally in the best possible way, where the displays are or where the equipment is as well. So we spend a lot of time working out the exact designs for every location. The next thing is that once a store is open, you have to make sure that you have the capability to audit those stores, because you can kill a brand off very easily. It takes a lot of effort to keep that focus on it. So we spend a lot of time once a store is open to make sure that operationally it's executed brilliantly. Then I'm going to share with you some of our experiences in terms of stretching the brand too far. It's always interesting once you've launched a brand to see what else you can do with the brand. So I'll just share with you our experience in the UK. So today, if you go to some of the key supermarkets, you can actually buy a bake-at-home cookie box. So it's a frozen cookie box, 6 cookies. You simply take it out of the box and put it in the oven. That has worked very, very successfully for us. We also have a very successful online ordering business, and it's growing at about 20-25% each year. So you can go online, order your cookies, personalize your cookies as well, and they will be delivered the following day. We then tried to create a bakery concept with Millie's. So things like croissants, pain au chocolat, etc. That actually failed badly. So with the same retail company that we worked with the bake-at-home solution, they asked for us to develop a bakery solution. And it just didn't fly. There were other better brands available. So we learned our lesson from there. We've had recently another franchise partner come to us and wants to develop a Millie's ice cream parlor. So that's a big question mark for us at the moment, whether that would work or not. So we'd have to do a lot of trials and tests before we do that. Once you open a brand, you can't stand still. You've got to keep making sure that the customer experience, the operational execution is continuously perfected. So one of the things we will continuously do is how we can improve the operations and how we can improve the whole customer experience. The ranging and merchandising, particularly when you go to a new country, you have to keep adapting and adopting the whole range in the merchandise and the way you display products. You have to really continue to look at the data, see what products are selling and what are not selling. We launched a couple of products in India thinking they would do well, and they haven't. So we're continuously refining the range. The marketing campaigns, as I touched on earlier, There's a huge effort in marketing the brand in India, particularly when you launch, but also because of all the various festivals. There's a lot of effort going on that side as well. We talked about margins, labor scheduling. So we're undergoing a lot of learning with our first 2 stores. And probably not surprising to you guys, most of our trade is actually happening in the evening and weekends. So the way we schedule labor to make sure that we can deal with the peaks and troughs is really crucial. So we're putting a lot of effort into that. And any food product, there's quite a lot of wastage if you're not managing that product well. Fortunately for us, it's a frozen puck that comes, so from the back of house, wastage is very low. But from the front of house side, keeping the availability, the range full and the displays full is crucial. So managing that range at the end of the day and the wastage is also very, very important. So they're the things really we have to keep an eye on continuously. The other thing that we're very fortunate about is that Paraniti Chopra is actually the brand ambassador. So if you Google Paraniti Chopra and Milish, you'll see a lot of videos and messages from Paraniti. We're very blessed to have Paraniti as an ambassador. She actually came across the brand when she was studying in Manchester in the UK and London and fell in love with it. So she's going to be great for the brand as well. And her brother is also one of the area developers, and hopefully we'll open a store very soon in Mumbai. So coming to the end of the presentation, so where next? So if you look at our journey so far from the UK to the Middle East to India, the next big market for us is going to be Asia. But we're not in a rush. Once we're established in India, and once we're comfortable that we've got a good pipeline of business, our efforts will really move on to Asia. We think there's a huge opportunity in a number of Asian countries, and we'll be exhibiting Millie's Cookies at the Singapore Franchise Show in October, so we're looking forward to that. My personal ambition is to make sure we've got as many franchise stores as we've got equity stores. So by 2020, I'm hoping that we'll have at least 60 franchise stores, of which probably half will be in India. Okay, so that was the presentation. Happy to take any questions from the audience. It's a company called World Iconic Brands, which is part of Franchise India.
Taste.
Right.
Yeah. How do you ensure the same cookie taste by using the Indian ingredients, or are you adjusting the taste of the cookies to the Indian palate?
I can't make out what you're saying, sorry.
Okay. I'll repeat. How do you ensure that the cookies are tasting that you are making in India the same as what are made in UK?
Yeah.
Or are you adjusting the cookies' taste to the Indian palate?
So it'll never be 100% the same as the UK because the wheat is different, the sugar is different, etc. But we're confident that it's about 98% in terms of where we want it to be. So we spent over a year developing the cookies. We worked with 3 or 4 partners, and at the end we settled with a company called Midas and Baker Circle. So we trialed and tested the cookies probably a dozen times before we got to the right recipe. We'll never get it to the 100% the same because the products are different. Plus, things like eggless cookies don't exist elsewhere, so they're new to India. But I'm confident that we're about 98%. And the team from India have been to the UK, tested the products there, bought products back, etc. We've shared all the recipes. So I'm pretty confident we've got a great cookie here.
I understand that you globally also work with other restaurant chains in terms of being their other dessert, being part of their dessert offering. Some other quick service restaurants or some other casual dining restaurants where Millie's cookies or probably private label cookies for them are also created. So do you have that kind of a connection?
Yeah, so we work with over 250 brands. So in our portfolio, we've got 500 brands, half of which are brands which we own and operate, like Cafe Ritazza, Upper Crust. We've got a number of casual dining brands, Spinning Jenny, The Beer House, The Merchant, etc. So these are brands which we own and operate, but we also work with some super brands. So Marks and Spencer, Simply Food, so they've got a food brand in the UK. We operate over 100 stores. It's a 400 million turnover business for us. We work with Burger King. We've got about 80 Burger Kings across Europe. We've got about 140 Starbucks stores as well. So we've got a lot of experience of bringing brands in as well, so a lot of knowledge, and we've taken that knowledge and now started to franchise out our brands. We'll keep focus on our core business, which is travel. We've got so much opportunity in our own business that to keep the brand in growth and alive, one of our strategies is to therefore franchise it downtown.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you so much for sharing the success and failures of the brand, giving some very useful tips and growth strategies to enter and grow in India. Thank you so much for your time. And I request Ms. Mare to please join us on stage and do the honors. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. SukhTiwana, Group Commercial Director, SSP Group.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sir, a great privilege to have you amongst us for this Congress. Thank you for taking the time out and for your immense contribution.